This is our second webinar of the year, and it is entitled, I'm going to give you that in 1 second as soon as this page loads. Should have loaded it beforehand. It's getting the most out of modern automation and AI, playout accessibility, social media, streaming, and monetization, brought to us by TelVue. And representing TelVue today, we have Jesse Lerman, the president and CEO. We have Brian Albertson, who is the Director of Systems Engineering, and Charlie Page, the New England sales representative. So I'm going to kick it right on over to Jesse to start off today's webinar. Jesse,
Great.
take it away.
Thanks, David, for the intros. Let's see. I have to send a request here for sharing. So I think someone has to enable that. And then I will pull up the presentation. There we go. Share my desktop. And boom. So let me know if everyone can just see the intro slide here. All good?
Yes.
All right, great. So let's get rolling. And we got a cozy group here, so we can make this pretty interactive. Anyone who does want to chime in, just turn your mic on and, we can talk through. So as we present here, I think it'd be great to hear, from many of you in terms of, how you're using, new automation, AI. And with that, let's kick it off. Really going to approach this in kind of two parts. So the first part will focus more on the AI side, kind of a quick overview of what AI is and how it's impacting community media and community broadcasting, and then we'll spend a little time on other topics related to modern automation. And not a surprise, oftentimes they go hand in hand. So let's start off here and just a little bit about AI itself. What is it? Artificial intelligence. You can see the little Venn diagram over here on the right and just kind of talking through that. So at the high level, AI is effectively machines trying to mimic and emulate human thinking. So that's at the high level. And that involves, attempting to discover, reason, and infer. So within artificial intelligence, one key area, and I'm sure many of you have heard, the phrase is machine learning. So machine learning is all about making predictions and trying to make decisions based on data. So that's where things like big data and data science comes in. That's not necessarily, directly part of, AI or machine learning itself, but kind of alongside and a key overlap there. And the whole, point is, the more data that's provided, the more machine learning is able to learn and improve. So then within machine learning, you have deep learning. And that's really all about, and I'm sure most of you have heard the phrase neural networks. And that's all about machines being modeled after how our minds actually work, how the brain works. And within deep learning, you have foundational models or foundation models like Gen AI. So that's generative AI for, images, video, and whatnot, language, and all that good stuff. So we'll dive in and talk more about that. So why AI matters in community media. AI can obviously help automate and save time. It can help increase accessibility, enhance discoverability of your content, help you reach new audiences and engage, with your audiences in new ways. And talking about accessibility, I think this is probably one area that most of you have thought of or maybe are already effectively working with AI. One of the big areas is speech to text, AI speech to text for captioning. So that's become pretty widespread at this point. When this tech first hit, many years ago, it was exciting but a little green. And the speech to text sometimes would be a bit comical. And, we saw, as an early adopter of this technology, yeah, in the early days, some of those transcripts weren't so great, but in a very short amount of time, it's gotten incredibly good and incredibly fast. So that's really one of the promises of AI, and I think something we're going to see, things that seem hard, and you think, it's never going to do a good job at that. Over in short time, the more people are using it, the more it's getting trained, it tends to accelerate and really do a good job. So other areas are things like diarization, which is speaker detection, which can be quite interesting for government meetings, whether it's just detecting that there is a speaker change or actually being trained to recognize speakers' voices and be able to label who's actually speaking. Translation for multi-language captioning. So even beyond just accessibility, for example, for the hard of hearing, but now into accessibility for multi-language speakers. Different types of captioning, including closed captioning, open captioning, and web captioning. And then kind of the flip side, we've talked about speech to text for for automatic captioning, but there's also text to speech. So this gets kind of interesting. You could have automated captioning, which effectively generates text, and that could be fed to text to speech to automatically create a secondary audio programming language. So maybe there's a meeting in English and it's being captioned in English and maybe translated from English to Spanish. So there's also captioning in Spanish. Well, that translation could also now be fed to text to speech, and that Spanish track could be spoken as a secondary audio track. So this is already being used pretty widely in the industry for things like dubbing of programs. They could be video on demand, on streaming platforms, and they're trying to internationalize. So it's really being used pretty heavily out in the industry already. Captioning for both live as well as offline programming. We talked about text to speech. Another area is text to sign language, and there are some companies I'll note who are already doing that, which is another form of accessibility. There is audio description, which is another area I think many of you are starting to hear about because of some of the DOJ accessibility guidelines. And I'll show some demos and we'll talk a little deeper about audio description as well. And then also the web content accessibility guidelines, all about, overlays on your website to try to make your website more accessible. And many of those tools under the hood are actually using AI as well. So live caption translation, again, I think most are familiar with the concept, but what's nice is this can be done, on your cable channels as well, in addition to your streams. So the technology, the solutions are out there where, again, that meeting might be in English and you have, a big Spanish speaking community and you want to offer, an option to turn on the Spanish captions. You can do that with live translation. And again, that can carry on cable, that can carry to your web streams, that can carry to many social media platforms that would accept embedded captioning with multiple caption tracks. And on the cable side, there are certain limitations just because of the way the cable signals are carried in the set-top boxes, work where most typically you would be able to support two languages, but when you get into the world of streaming, particularly with the video on demand side, it's easy to unleash many languages and open that up. So if there are 5 or 6 languages in your community that are pretty widely spoken, that's easy to set up a workflow. And now, your meetings, once they're posted online, whether they're watching them on your website or watching them on mobile and OTT apps, can now have multiple languages. So another area where AI is coming into play is metadata and content tagging. So AI, can do things like scene and object recognition, actually analyzing video itself. So at this point, AI is pretty good at analyzing images. You feed it an image, you can play around with it even in like Chat GPT. Give it an image and say, what do you see? Describe this image to me. And video, of course, is just a sequence of images. So may take a little bit more processing power, but AI is getting quite good at going through and actually scanning video and being able to detect what is going on in the video for metadata tagging, who's in it, brands, things like that. That allows being able to search libraries, searching footage using natural language searches like across this library, I'm looking for, the example here, a person walking into a store at sunset. Okay. It could go ahead and scan and actually, parse all the video and come up with that. So, many of the tools I think that are pretty prominent for video editing at this point, like the Adobe suite, my understanding are already starting to incorporate these types of solutions. So, I'm wondering maybe for just those who want to chime in. Are any of you, using tools like that, maybe within Adobe where you have a lot of stock footage and it's actually scanning not just
It's in there.
metadata that you entered. Yeah. Sorry, does someone want to chime in? Okay. Um, and this also allows things like highlight detection. Um, so AI can now not only identify and tag metadata, but can also look for, key moments, whether it's analyzing the audio transcripts or analyzing, the video itself. So high action, emotional moments for trailers and social clips, or, recaps, sports highlights, things like that. And there are, solutions out there, AWS, Amazon, they have a whole, suite of services around, speech to text, text to speech, image analysis, video analysis. And these are all great tools that can help improve discoverability, whether you're looking for content and footage or you're trying to make, your media, more searchable and discoverable for your audience. So on that topic, AI is really great for generating summaries, particularly for meetings, as well as creating chapter points. So detecting, where the key moments, within a meeting or where, agenda items are being discussed. These are all things that AI is getting quite good at. So that also is great for sports. You want to quickly create a summary of the game, or you want to create, chapter points so viewers can quickly find where the key scores were during the game. These are all tasks that AI does quite well already, as well as things like auto clipping. There are, a lot of new tools out there that will, take long form video and parse it down to, to short form, or, pull out little highlights and clips and stylize them specifically for social media posts. We'll talk a little bit more about those as well. And again, as we said, this is all about helping to find content faster. And there are different tools out there to accelerate search across large libraries of content. But one of the things that helps feed into that, of course, is the volume of metadata that AI can now quickly generate compared to, the more traditional model of humans having to go through, watch all that video, spend that time typing it up and tagging. That is, incredibly time consuming. And, one reason why most of you probably have never done that across all of your libraries, to this extent. So, and of course, what's nice is as AI continues to progress, the cost, involved in this does just naturally continue to come down. So I don't really have a ballpark, figure for what would it cost to use, one of these tools to completely scan, 20 years worth of your library and do all that tagging and image recognition. That might maybe be a little pricey right now, but those prices are just going to continue to come down. So here are just some examples. Again, we've talked a lot about accessibility and captioning, but these other, approaches, including metadata, all of these go into, the increasing searchability. And here are just some examples. Once you have your captioning, not only can that be used for someone to watch the video and see the closed captioning, that's kind of the baseline. But now those captions can be presented as a complete transcript right alongside the video. So this is great for government meetings. You may see this sort of feature in other solutions like, YouTube is now doing some auto captioning and can show that transcript, but now that entire transcript becomes searchable. So someone who's watching a government meeting and maybe they're looking for, some particular phrase or keyword that's interesting to them, go ahead, type it in. It'll highlight where it is. You can click on any of those locations and it'll take you right to that time code. So really handy for discoverability. And then likewise, automated chapters can be presented as well. That's another way that viewers can quickly find what they're looking for. Sometimes they don't know exactly what they're looking for and they want kind of a quick scan of, what was exciting, what was important. So having those chapter points, they can roll through and jump right to those points as well. And then, and likewise beyond meetings, this is also great for sports. So finding key moments in sporting events. So, here, this is actually a local Massachusetts game, Medford at Malden. I think it may have been posted up on the media exchange or whatnot, and we ran it through, and you have, first touchdown by Medford Mustangs at this point, So it does a really good job of automatically finding those key moments and then presenting them. Now, all these elements can be searchable across your entire library as well, which is nice. So not only searching, once you're on a particular video landing page, but now you may want to search across, the entire library, certain phrases, certain topics people are interested in, and those can be highlighted showing, all right, this phrase was found one time in the core metadata, or 13 times across chapters, or 12 times within the caption lines. And then drilling in, those will be highlighted so people can see, okay, that's where the phrase is within the captioning, or this is where it is within the chapter. So again, it just opens up, a whole new world of search and discoverability, which makes it really convenient for your viewers to find exactly what they're looking for. So on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, just kind of curious, how many of you have been spending time trying to get your websites, to be WCAG compliant? Has anyone started working in that area or something you're actively doing? I see David shaking his head. Um, I think it's at one point I know MassAccess was at least exploring some automated tools for that. Is that something you're still doing now?
We do use Accessibility.
Okay, great. How have you found that tool? Has that been working out pretty
It's
well?
great. It's great.
Yeah.
We had talked about maybe trying to get some kind of group pricing for them,
Hmm.
but we haven't had a lot of interest in it. I think most people would be interested in it. It's a question of another expenditure. You know what I mean,
Right.
Jesse?
Yep, it's a trade-off. Another expenditure, versus the pressure or motivation to do it. Obviously, there's some DOJ guidelines that are, that will be requiring it. And I know there's a grace period, for that as well, based on kind of the size of the organization. So, and there's also, honestly, there's always the possibility that those guidelines and recommendations change, right? This can happen across different administrations, so it can be fluid. But right now, these are the kind of things. It's better not to get caught off guard, and it's good to get ahead. So it's worthwhile exploring, especially if the price is pretty reasonable. But generally for websites, there's a couple of ways of approaching it. You can take more of a audit fix approach where you're really auditing your core website code and fixing everything so it's natively compliant. And then, as we discussed, and what MassAccess was doing is using what's called an overlay, which is kind of a magic widget that will, without having to go in and do any of that auditing and fixing and coding, will just kind of magically, fix things dynamically. These overlay widgets can also leverage some AI. They have tools that can scan, where on the websites are there images that don't have tags or captions identifying what the image is. Now, think about it. That ties into some of the other AI techniques we talked about. That's, image recognition. So there are now tools that can go through and scan images on websites and put in some kind of reasonable tagging. This is an image of a camera at a football game. So that can be used to enhance accessibility and through meeting the WCAG guidelines as well. So the overlay, no doubt, is also the quickest solution, easy to get up and running. Um, this pricing here, I don't know if it's the very latest, but I think it was around 500 a year for sites under 1,000 pages, and then 1,500 a year for sites under 10,000 pages. So typically, the way like Accessibility works is they rely or require a Google site scan indexing your site, and then based on the number of pages, you have different pricing. Um, so, there's some discussion in the accessibility community around whether the overlays are, really the best way to be doing this. Sometimes they can get in the way of screen readers that are important for people who, have, really require accessibility, and some discussion around do the overlays kind of interfere with the screen readers? Is it really better to do it the natural way? That's something to kind of track. I think it's also fair to note that many of the website CMS systems out there, there's no doubt, if they're not already, most probably are, they're going to start adding more and more AI features within them. So your own, website CMS, whether you're using like a WordPress or, Wix, whatever it is, they're already starting to incorporate AI. And I'm sure as accessibility just becomes, more of a key requirement, those tools will probably be built right in to your website platforms as well. That might eliminate the need, down the line for even using these types of overlays. And this is just an example of what one of those overlay widgets looks like. So, it'll handle things like, different profiles. Like here, you can see there's a seizure safe profile or vision impaired profile, things like, font sizes, color contrast, all that. Your website users can customize accessibility needs to their profile. Audio description is another one that has been talked about in these DOJ requirements for community media stations, and really I think the key requirement there is primarily around government programming. So especially any community media center that is dealing with government meetings and posting those on the website. Anything that is government related has these requirements. So audio description, I would say, unlike captioning, is a lot more challenging. And I'm not sure if everyone knows what audio description is, but I'll just play this brief clip. But basically, you have spoken narration that is explaining what is happening in the video. So you'll get the sense here. Let me play this clip.
All right, here's how it's going down. In an urban neighborhood, teens hang out on the front stoop of a 3-story brownstone. Inside, Stevie Wonder sits at a keyboard in the center of a spacious studio. Man grabs a bass guitar.
So, basically you have your video content, and as that's rolling along, there's spoken narration. And this is one of the things that was mentioned as a requirement for this upcoming, DOJ regulation. But there is a hardship exemption, because if you look at the cost of it, if you have a human, do that type of audio description and prepare, that can be as much as, $15 to $30 per minute. Think about that. Very, very expensive. So that seems like a hardship exemption. I don't know, we'll have to see. I don't know, if this really, comes about, how hard it is to get that exemption, what you really have to go through. But that would seem reasonable that for community media, they'd probably be able to make a good case. Now, with that being said, AI is already taking a crack at this and doing, pretty reasonable job. So again, right back to that, AI video analysis. There's one company called Audible Site. They have, their pricing. I think their pro account pricing is $1,200 a year for 600 minutes a year. Now, that's still not very cheap. but it's probably close to 10 times less expensive than the human. And again, early, kind of in the early, phase of this, we got to imagine prices are going to come down. It's going to get, and
Please
it's going to get
do.
better and better. So I'm actually going to bring up a little demo of what that looks like because it's pretty fascinating. So let me click this link here and see if I can log in. Okay, so I'm just in a trial account within this Audible site application. But gist of it is you upload your videos. I have one here. It's a short clip from I think National Science Foundation, dinosaurs. And let me click into this. I think I say edit. And what happened, it went ahead and processed. And again, it's picking apart the video, breaking up into images, and identifying what's in the images. So you can already see here, how it's tagged. It's got a nice interface to go through. You can even edit and clean those up. But if I click the preview audio described video, you'll see kind of how well it did here. So let's click the preview and hit play.
A large dinosaur walking across a rocky area next to a mountain.
Researchers have found a way to bring dinosaurs back to life using X-ray videos and 3D technology to reanimate them. The
Bird with a skeleton in its body.
Raptor moves on NSF Science.
Clock on a dark background with the word science now.
While dinosaurs date.
All right, so, and you can also see there, one of the challenges is, when do you break in to add this extra audio, right, and not disrupt? So I think, there's probably a whole art to that. Humans probably find a way to, really try to make it as seamless as possible. I think these AI tools do a combination of pausing, like you saw there. I think that's kind of the brute force way to do it is just pause, speak, and then continue on with the video. So, but I think the tools are promising. And again, I feel like having been through the whole progression of the early days of AI captioning, which were a little comical at first, to now pretty incredible. This feels like it's in that kind of early phase, but it's going to get good very fast. So I think that hardship exemption, a couple of years from now, that might be hard to claim because the cost of tools like this might be pretty affordable. So that's one to keep an eye on. Oops.
All right, here's how it's going.
Pause this. Okay. So, it's also interesting thinking about, audio description for government meetings. What is that? How practical is that? Things are pretty static visually in government meetings. I think, audio description, maybe narrating who the speaker is could be pretty interesting. So now think about that, diarization where there's speaker detection and maybe the meeting's going along and at least being able to say, okay, now, town council member XYZ is speaking. That could be pretty useful. Other things is maybe in the middle of a meeting, now they cut to a presentation. So it's not just talking heads sitting up there having a discussion, but there's a key presentation going on. There could be a requirement to actually describe what's going on, within those, slides. So still, I think it could be pretty challenging in some cases, and in other cases, probably, a pretty low friction for when it comes to government meetings, at least. I mentioned, AI sign language. This is just an interesting company called Synapse.ai that does this, and then will actually generate like an avatar or a AI image of a person signing in the corner of the video screen. So cool stuff if you want to check out Synapse.ai. So moving on, kind of beyond accessibility, another interesting area for AI and broadcast is predictive scheduling. So this is, deciding, automatically deciding what to schedule when based on audience patterns. It could be, based on monetization. I think that's probably where a lot of the, the innovation is going on here is probably for more commercial channels and, other streaming content that's heavily monetized. So that's, taking historical viewership data, content affinity, probably, purchase and other types of trends, and feeding that in to try to, optimize things like, the amount of revenue that's being brought in for monetized channels, or maybe just the viewership itself. So I think this is a pretty interesting area. Now, obviously, within community media, you don't have statistics on who's watching the actual cable channels. That's very hard to get, few and far between. So it's kind of hard to be feeding that type of information in. There's also a degree of because community media channels are not, they're not commercial channels. You want to be careful that you're not, completely driven by solely the number of viewers. Obviously, you want to have good reach, but there's other parts of your initiative. It's a little different. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, things like as you're streaming, and you may be gathering statistics on your web streams, on your social media content, what you're posting on social media, that's all very interesting. And you could imagine that tying back to some, AI scheduling tools. Maybe they don't do it completely automated where you don't look, but it could be recommendations, hey, based on what you scheduled last year and based on what you're seeing on social media, this looks like a pretty good, pattern for your schedule. What do you think? So, you could see tools like that starting to make their way in. On the video production and editing side, a lot of tools are already incorporating AI. There's a few that are they're called one called Storyboard Hero, another Jasper AI. That's all about AI scripting and storyboarding. So it can help you generate the script. If you already have the script, it can automate storyboarding and literally using Gen AI to create animations for that storyboard. I think one of them also has an option if you can pay more to get a human involved, and then they will actually do like hand-drawn illustrations. So kind of interesting there. You'll start to see synthetic avatars and voiceovers. We already talked about synthesized secondary audio tracks and dubbing. Um, a lot of tools out there to take long form content and turn it into bite-sized video. Obviously, social media is driving a lot of that. There's one company called WiseCut that looks pretty interesting in that space. Not sure if anyone's played with that, but I think there's a lot of these tools are being used for like social media influencers and things like that. And I'll just click here, give you a good sense. This is their little marketing pitch for a WiseCut, but let me pull this up. I don't know if there's audio, but let me see. Oh, here, this is the clip I was going to play. Let me restart that.
Got long videos? Introducing WiseCut AI. Simply upload your video or paste a link and watch as WiseCut automatically crafts clips from your best moments. Choose from the top 3 highlights, or harness our AI's SEO-optimized copywriting to boost your content's reach. Need a specific scene? Search by keywords, filter by desired length, or monetize your entire video on YouTube. For personalized edits, tap into our proprietary AI storyboard. With WiseCut, every video is polished with auto-cut silences, dynamic punch-ins, smart background music, plus subtitles and translations. Share your story across platforms and make it viral with WiseCut AI.
Pretty interesting, and obviously, that's a lot of the AI techniques and tools we've been talking about are all kind of rolled into one in that tool. So, just curious, has anyone tried such a tool or have been using AI for social media? Sounds like not yet. Well, maybe check that one out. It looks pretty cool. I have no idea what the pricing is, but pretty interesting there. AI for automatic editing. So being able to assemble rough cuts from raw footage using scene detection, speaker changes, looking for different emotional tones. AI for shot selection, scanning footage. That's all part of that ability to, scan through video libraries. Looking for what AI deems is the best take, being able to crop shots. You saw some of that in the WiseCut tool, automatically apply transitions. AI for color correction as well. So also up conversion. There are a lot of tools out there for image up conversion, but also video up conversion. That can be kind of interesting. You got that big library of we'll call it legacy SD content. These automation tools, again, there might be a kind of a cost tipping point when you would seriously consider doing that, but you could probably unleash that tool against a very large library of content and have it up convert to more HD feel. So interesting on the video production and editing side. For Gen AI, the generative AI is now prevalent across pretty much all types of media, video itself. As I don't know if anyone's played around with Adobe Firefly. So Adobe seems to have a lot of Gen AI tools built right in, but that is basically, like the ability to go in and type, I want a video of a turtle swimming in the sea, and it goes ahead and constructs it because you're looking for a clip like that, in your content. They have another tool called a generative extend, which if you have a clip, maybe it's 3 seconds long, but you really needed it to be 5 for your production, it can use AI to kind of extend that content and round it out. I'll actually show, it's kind of interesting. I'll show a video of that Adobe extend just to give a sense here.
With Generative Extend, Premiere Pro can help you create a few extra frames. You'll find the Generative Extend tool in your toolbar. Just select it, then head to your timeline to drag the edge of your clip. You can add frames to video files with resolutions up to 4K, and it also works with vertical videos. However, Generative Extend doesn't support footage with a frame rate higher than 30 frames per second, and it currently isn't compatible with HDR media. Future updates will aim to support a wider range of video resolutions, frame rates, and formats. Generative Extend can create 2 seconds of video footage or 10 seconds of audio. It cannot generate speech or extend music. Once it's done, you'll see a label on the part of the clip that's been generated. So you can easily tell where the generated frames start and end. It's important to note that Premiere is not using your clip to train the AI model for Generative Extend. Plus content credential.
So you saw it kind of run through that section of content that was AI generated and looked pretty seamless. So that's really interesting. Then let's see, actually just show one other clip. Adobe Firefly, that will generate video itself. This other company or product called Runway ML I came across. They're touting that their generative AI now handles world consistency, meaning if it's like one of the issues, you might say, oh, go make me this, and now it's in a different scene and you're saying make me that, but because the scene's a little different or something's changed, it just is way off base. It doesn't match. There's no flow to what it had generated before. So I think this idea of world consistency, meaning across the story you're telling or across the world that this lives in, it can now be consistent. So I'll play a little bit of this clip. It's looks pretty fascinating.
Hey, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jamie.
And today we're very excited to announce and release Gen 4, our most powerful AI model ever.
All right, everybody. It looks like I found it. But did I grab it?
Seeing double.
Anyway, interesting stuff. And again, Firefly, I think, does some of that within the Adobe suite, and certainly, interesting whether that's something you start to tap into more as you're, coming up with productions. So obviously the video side, same deal on images, lots of tools out there for AI image generation. Won't go into too much detail there. I'm sure many of you have played around with that to a degree. There are all sorts of tools. whether you're, just trying to make a marketing email, or, you're doing a social media post and you're looking for an image, it's pretty simple now to just use these tools and say, hey, kick me out an image of, XYZ, and then, tools to tune it. You want to change the background colors. You want to make it transparent. It's pretty amazing how fast that's come along and how far that's come along now. Likewise for music. So there are various tools out there for AI generated music. There's a little bit of a novelty, but there are these sites where you can go, create your own popular music tracks, where literally all you need to do is enter, a phrase like, write me a song about the Aurora Borealis, and I want it in the style of heavy metal. Let's go. And this thing will kick out something. And, it's the way I describe it right now is it's not great, but it's amazing how good it is actually, and maybe scary how good it is. So there's this site here, like Suno is one of them. I'll just drill over here. They have some examples like here. We'll play this one. Red, red sunrise burned out my something or other. Red, red sunrise burned out my sight. Eyes gone melting in the newborn night. But doesn't matter, we dance through the flame. Party like gods who forgot their name. Skies drip fire, ground. All right, so, it's not going on my playlist, but, that's, it's getting pretty impressive. So again, that could be a handy tool for, production where you're looking for, think about royalty-free background, audio tracks and things like that. AI, could, handle that, pretty easily. Now, whether it's truly royalty-free or is it ripping someone off, not realizing it, that's a whole other area. And we'll chat about that a little bit near the end as well. But AI for audio enhancement. So we've talked a lot about captions and subtitles, things like voice isolation, and cleaning up audio. So if there's a lot of background noise, things like that, muffled dialogue. So those kind of tools could become really interesting for government meetings as well. Sometimes the audio, for one reason or another, isn't that great, or someone's mumbling. So AI is starting to get in the mix to be able to take that video as well. So like noisy video and being able to clean that up. So for enhancements. And then on, another level would be kind of viewer and audience engagement. A lot of AI getting involved at this level. So things like personalized recommendations, we all see that, whether, recommendations on YouTube or, different video channels we're watching, AI is getting involved in analyzing data and making those recommendations. Interactive polls and chatbots, live QA. I'm sure everyone has come across that now on sites where, you wish you're talking to a human, but you're not. But there is a time and a place for it. Sentiment analysis, being able to, detect reactions, expressions, moods. That could be used in, real-time live video. You're trying to get your audience engaged. You're trying to hold your audience. You could get, real-time feedback on obviously not just the number of viewers, but how are they feeling about the content? Are they liking it as much as your last show? Predictive engagement. When's the best time to notify your viewers of new content, whether that's social media, on your website? Being able to predict things like churn and people not coming back to a service. So there's been companies investing a lot in this space, particularly for gaming and sports, where there's a lot of live content, a lot of social media content. One such company is called Stream Hatchet. But again, I think it's natural these tools are going to start to make their way into more of the kind of day-to-day video and social media applications. On the publishing and distribution side, things like auto reformatting. So, maybe taking video. We saw a little bit of this with, I think, WiseCut seems to have features in this area. So you may take some video that wasn't particularly prepared for social media, and it can automate, creating a vertical version of it for TikTok and Instagram, or a square version, or a landscape. things like thumbnail and title suggestions. So for social media, it scans, the video and says, this is what I recommend will be the most engaging thumbnail that will get people excited, or better titles for, more click-throughs, particularly when, there's, advertising involved as well. Content moderation, being able to detect, something that might be sensitive in content and maybe needs review before it's posted. Things like that, AI is heavily involved with already. On the live production side, everything from camera automation, so AI in pan, tilt, zoom systems to track speakers. You're seeing that in sports. I think a company like Huddle now has these packages that I think many high schools are using that will kind of automate the video production side and try to track the action in sporting events. I'm not necessarily hearing the greatest things about it right now. I think obviously the human production is far better, but that tech is out there already as well. Things like virtual backgrounds and compositing, being able to do live highlight reels. So it could be a sports game going on, and in real time AI is analyzing and creating clips and sharing on social media in real time. That could be fully automated now, and there are tools out there for that as well. Could even get into automatic scoring and graphics. You're trying to do a one-person shoot of a sporting event, and you're keeping these sports scores and the graphics going. You can imagine AI getting involved in that, and based on the audio and even the video, being able to track and update a score, or where runners are on base in a baseball game. So I think it's going to be creeping its way into all aspects. Another area for AI that's come a long way is even just for websites itself. So we talked a little bit about this in regards to web content accessibility, but even website design. A lot of the tools like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress now have AI tools built right in that say, oh, you're trying to start a new website. Would you like to use AI to design it? And it'll design based on template and content and spit out a complete website for you. The search engine optimization that's really important for Google search and whatnot is already using AI under the hood to help analyze a site, look at SEO metrics and come up with optimize SEO. Likewise for social media posts, tools to help you with coming up with the copy itself. Oh, I want to make a quick social media post, trying to make this sound really exciting. That's a natural for AI as well. Likewise with marketing emails. So a lot of the tools like MailChimp and other marketing tools have that built right in, right? If you haven't already experienced it, you'll be in the tool. You're trying to come up with your marketing piece, and it may give you recommendations. Oh, this seems a little wordy. Would you like to shorten it? Do you want to change the tone of this? So I'm sure it's fast and furious coming everywhere, where just about every interface you're using seems to now have some sort of AI companion alongside to help you move quicker. So, and then even coding itself. This is an area, obviously, as a company that develops products and we write a lot of code. It's really interesting to see how AI is progressing and actually writing code. So already I'd say it's quite good for creating automated test suites. That's something that is really tedious as a developer, where you write your code, but you want to have test suites to make sure that when you make future changes, your code doesn't break. AI does a really good job of scanning code and coming out with test suites. It's great for rapid prototyping, some tedious coding like adding, stubs or hooks to, write to an API from some other company. So a lot of tools are being built right in. There's GitHub, which is a popular platform for maintaining code, has a companion product called Copilot, which can help with AI coding. Amazon has Amazon Q. ChatGPT is pretty interesting, and it's really not far-fetched to imagine, sometime soon being able to, come up with high level requirements for something you're trying to develop from a coding standpoint. And if you've developed those requirements carefully, feeding it to AI and say, make me this product. Sounds a little far-fetched, but it's again, I point back to the early days of captioning. It's okay to, wow, this is pretty incredible. The accuracy is amazing. Translating to languages, we're probably not so far off from AI getting, pretty good at that as well. You better know what you're doing in terms of how you create those specs and really map everything out. But it's going to come fast and furious. So, and then just generally. All this sounds great, but of course there are numerous pitfalls. One of the big ones with AI, they kind of use the term hallucination. So AI makes things up a lot, right? It just lies often. So it kind of comes back to you need to know what you're doing when you're using AI. So the more experience you have with the thing you're trying to get AI to do, the better you're going to be able to leverage AI to help you do these things faster. So having that deep knowledge is really important. So it's not going to be good without humans guiding it, and that means humans who really know what they're doing and are subject experts. So it's not a replacement for not having deep experience and knowledge in a given area. And another big concern is intellectual property, right? So it's all fine and great, but how do we know what AI is generating is not actually violating someone else's intellectual property? Or how do you know something you're feeding it is not now being used for, other people are leveraging that when you didn't intend it? Maybe you wrote some code and AI helped you, polish that code a little bit, and you didn't expect that now suddenly that's out there on the internet for anyone else trying to do the same thing, to have AI say, oh, here, do it this way. And they just gave you, gave them your code. So a lot of the tools do have, especially the kind of enterprise level tools, they will do things like, at least they claim, they can effectively fence, the training that you're doing is only relevant to, your own organization. So there are tools out there, but you kind of need to know what you're doing and need to know to look out for that as well. So, just in terms of embracing AI in your workflows, if you're not already doing it, some suggestions: start small, experiment, focus on places that will really help you save time. So a lot of workflow productivity is a really great area to explore. It's not about always replacing things. It's more about enhancing, augmenting, and finding ways to save time. We're all busy. And when we get involved, think about how many things you do on a daily basis are a little more on the tedious side. And if you could free up that time, now you have time to work on, the harder, more creative things that you really love. So looking for AI to help with that. Obviously, you have to be careful with AI and make sure it's you're using it ethically. That comes into things like the intellectual property side, and also staying community focused as you're bringing in AI. How is AI being trained? It's being trained on data that extends well beyond your community. It's worldwide, and does that give less of a community feel about the elements and the way you're using it? So I think that's something to keep in mind, especially for community media. So that kind of wraps up what I had on the AI side. I have some on automation, which I think I'll go through quickly. But why don't I pause here and just see if there's any questions, or anyone has feedback. I'd love to hear stories. If anyone is using AI in your regular workflow successfully, that'd be great if you want to share a little bit of your story. If none, I will continue on and do a quick overview of modern automation. So, and actually, David, can you just remind me, do we have kind of a normal or set time for the webinar?
Well, we can go as long as we need to at this
Okay.
point. I think we broke it out for 2 to 3:30, but
Okay,
if we
great.
finish earlier than that, there are a couple of questions in the chat here I'd like to read to you if you
Okay,
like.
awesome. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Alex asks, can any of these tools be used in OBS? And many of these tools are great, don't get me wrong. However, it may be argued that the human/creative element is taken away with some of these tools. And what can you say to these people?
Yep. Great question. So OBS itself, I'm not quite as familiar with the direct integration. Um, it does seem generally that over time OBS does tend to integrate whatever the latest and greatest is. From a tech standpoint. So I have to imagine that OBS will be, getting some of these integrations and maybe through, other plugins. I believe they have kind of a plugin approach where people can write plugins. So I'm not like familiar right now. Does OBS already have a live transcription option? Not sure. I don't know the answer to that. If someone does know, you
It's
could chime
not
in.
great, but they do.
Okay, got it.
It's a third party plugin,
Yep.
but it's not great. I'm sure there's some improved one.
Mhm.
We've last tried using it, but it wasn't great, especially since we were trying to screen grab a Zoom meeting.
Got it. And is that like it's a free plugin, right? There's no charge to that, I imagine. Is that correct?
Yes, so OBS itself is open source and free.
Yeah.
So are most of the plugins, and many of the plugins aren't developed by OBS; they're developed by other people. Um, so I guess it's just a more of just looking for some of those other plugins for the captioning,
Yeah.
so that we can save a few bucks here and there.
Yep, and it makes sense. I think that's probably, that's the trade-off, right? You get the open source. It's an amazing tool, pretty widely used, but also, a lot of people like it because it's open source and it's free. So it becomes harder to, I mean, it's interesting whether a company wants to say, come along and say, look, I'm going to make a plugin that's highly maintained, but it's more of a commercial thing and you pay. Will that really take off within a platform like OBS? You probably get a little bit more of the OSS side, which can be great. But then sometimes it's a matter of how long does it stick around and continue to be maintained. Sometimes those kind of projects can, become defunct. So, but I think it's also fair to say that as each of these technology areas gets better and better, it becomes a little, more realistic to be able to make an open source version that doesn't need a cost that can do a pretty good job. So it may be a matter of time before that side gets a little bit better. But um, and then, the other point about, kind of losing the humanization side of things with AI, I agree 100%. I think that's a huge, challenge and concern. It's kind of somewhat, along the lines of my point about staying community focused, right? There are things you're trying to do that's, core to your initiative and, just saying, hey, AI, go ahead and do all my, editing and community programming. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's not going to work out. So, I think it is about, kind of as we say here, it's about enhancing and augmenting and about, trying to remove some of the busy work. I think that's where it's a big home run, that it's like, even in the process of coming up with something very creative that you're going to have a lot of human input, it takes time. And who has a lot of time right now? Nobody does, right? So if there are elements of it that can be, automated and you can take out some of the busy work without losing, the spirit of the creativity from the human side, that's a big win. And I think there's a lot of room for AI right now to play those kinds of roles. But it's like that the AI music. I mean, it's spitting out complete songs. I mean, like in multiple genres. It's pretty fascinating. Is that gonna kill off actual artists and recording artists and independent artists from making music? No, I don't think so right now. Could it, over time actually start to become a little scary in that regard? I would say that based on the way the technology moves, I feel like there could be a tipping point where it becomes harder for the end listener to know the difference. And that's going to bring up a lot of ethical questions, around all aspects. I mean, I think obviously it's being talked about kind of across all industries, right? People say, well, look, you'll see all these news stories. AI is coming for XYZ job, right? You see those stories all the time. And at this point, I think probably the XYZ has touched upon almost anything we do. Any job that anyone has had is being discussed. And, that's definitely a big concern. So there's going to be a lot of ethical issues, morality, philosophical issues around AI, and it's going to be fascinating to see how societies adapt to that. But in the meantime, I don't think we're quite at that stage, and there's a lot of ways to use, like any new technology, there are ways to use it ethically and use it in a way that can be very helpful and save time, and that's where it makes sense right now. Great. Any other questions, David?
Nothing right now, Jesse. I'd just like to pick your brain because this kind of thing always kind of makes me nervous. Every time I start to talk about this, I say, well, everything I've always been good at, it seems like, AI can do it now. And for those of us who are, really trying to figure out how we're still relevant in daily life and in our communities and in the municipalities we serve, this is kind of a scary technology to me. What do you say to that?
I think it still comes back to, using it in a way that is just enhancing and augmenting. So, you're the expert. You're the community media expert. AI itself is not the community media expert, and certainly not for your community, right? It's not really being trained on that. It, there are other things it does a very good job with. So, let's say in a given day, you're super busy, you're doing a million things, you have, an important marketing email you want to get out. There are a couple social media posts you want to get out. They all take time. You sit down to work on your marketing piece and, it's like, okay, I got to deal with, reading it a bunch of times and getting the grammar right, or geez, this thing's a little long. I was only given this many words. Having, a tool like AI to be able to throw out and say, all right, look, I gave you my quick draft. That's where, the heart of all your good ideas, that, you're the, the expert on all this, you got all that down. Do you really want to spend another half hour of your time, getting into the minutia of polishing that and figuring out how to get it under 500 words? Or if AI can do that, and at least give you a really good draft that now takes you 5 minutes to touch up, that just seems like a win. I don't think that's going against any of the kind of philosophical concerns you may have, but you just have saved time where you're now doing something else more important that helps you. So I mean, those are the kind of ways, I think it's the right way to look at it. And I think there's a lot of utility out there now with, that's just one little example. But I think all these areas we talked about, have applicability that are just enhancing and augmenting and saving you time, and not really, trying to take over, being, the brainchild behind what you're trying to do.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
A couple more questions for you, and one that's maybe not directly related to AI, but what is your newer paywall feature integrated into the OTT apps, or is
Oh.
your newer paywall feature integrated?
Oh, integrating into OTT. That's a great question. We're actually just about to launch that formally. So we've completed our integration in Roku and Apple TV, and Fire is just literally being wrapped up in the next week. And we're going to be launching. I was going to talk a little bit about that. We've been working with Lincoln County TV out of Maine. And they've been doing some really cool things with paywall. They had launched during really winter time, focusing on basketball season. It's like a big basketball county. So they had a lot of successes just with the website. So they launched paywall with Cloudcast on the web. Really good success. Actually, if you're going to be at National ACM, I'm on a paywall panel with Larry from Lincoln and Peter from North TV and Richard Turner from Carroll County as well. We'll be talking all about that, but Larry will be there. He'll share more details of kind of his, his experience with this paywall launch. But over the course of primarily the basketball season, I want to say they probably brought in close to 5K in revenue just over that season. Which was great for like an inaugural launch. It's really, I think, especially for sports. I think other content too, but especially around sports. Can be a great way to generate new revenues. So the OTT side, we're getting ready as a follow-up to launch that for Lincoln, and then that'll be squarely there for anyone who is excited to explore paywall and see how that works for them. So if you do get a chance, come to the session because we're going to talk in detail all about that. A lot of demos, great stories from the executive directors on how, real world, how they made the decision to launch paywall, how they got buy-in, how it's become successful for them. But stay tuned. We'll have a blog post soon that talks all about the formal OTT integration.
And just a formatting or a housekeeping sort of question. Are you going to make these slides available after the webinar?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, excellent. So that's the questions for now. If you have more to present.
Great. I'll do kind of pivot over to automation. So obviously a lot of what we're talking about in AI, goes to automation because AI can really help and be the heart of new automations. But even beyond AI itself, kind of an interesting area is for community media. And most of you are, well into this, but thinking beyond just channel playout and how to automate now that there are so many ways to distribute, just like the last question, talking about OTT, social media, mobile apps, your website, so many ways to, be engaging and distributing your content, and how does automation play into all that? So again, why automation matters. Pretty much the same reasons we talked about with AI, saving time, allow you to do more, help you expand programming, reaching new audiences, accessibility, how to enhance the quality of your channel as well, and even generate new sources of revenue through tools like paywall and video ads. So automation can play into all this. And of course, as you're trying to, expand, into these other distribution pipelines, a key issue is, how do you do that with, limited staff, limited time? You want to reach all these new areas, but it's not like you magically have a 48-hour day. So that's where automation comes in and can really help. So before we pivot into all the areas outside of traditional play out, just a little bit on the play out side. This is where, if you could leverage, whatever playback platform you might be using, if you can leverage, automation rules. So that's something I know, like in the Hypercaster, we've been trying to develop more and more automation rules, which is the whole idea there is set and forget. So rather, things that would normally be, require manually going into the interface, you set up rules, and now you're saving yourself time across all that. So that gets into scheduling itself. So things like automatic series scheduling. So rather than every day going in and dragging and dropping your programs onto the day calendar, it's pretty easy to do. It may not take that much time, but if you can automate more of that by saying, okay, this particular live program normally runs Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 o'clock. And then I want it automatically recorded. I want it auto captioned. I want it auto streamed to Facebook Live and YouTube Live. I want graphics displaying at certain times, and I want a motion logo, and I want to put up a now playing next playing announcement throughout that. These are all things. If you leverage the automation rules, you're doing all that, and you can set it up, set and forget, and you have that show taken care for the quarter, for the year. Now you can do that across your other programs. So really anything that is episodic in nature in particular is a real natural, because you can set up your scheduling pattern, the records, the live replay, or sorry, the replays from those records can obviously have a different pattern, and you can set all that up in one rule. You may set up your captioning rules. I want this particular town council meeting captioned. I want it translated to Spanish. And when this one is captioned, I want to use this particular custom language model that has all the names of the town council members, so the captioning is even more accurate. That's another example of an automation rule you can set up, and then it's all set and forget. That really helps also with your scheduling backbone, because the more of your episodic programs you handle through automation this way, that's really giving you the core of your schedule. In the Hypercaster, for example, you can see that nicely within your 1 week view on the calendar. You can even search if you're trying to drill in to find, just highlight certain series. I want to see what those patterns look like. That helps you find, available time slots for other programs as well. Around that automation too, particularly with some of that scheduling. It's kind of just an interesting but maybe subtle one. So when you get into signal routing, especially if you're using a traditional video switcher. Now, in a lot of platforms these days, like an example, the Hypercaster, you don't necessarily need to use a traditional video switcher anymore. Based on the model, it has integrated SDI ports, and you can plug things right in, and you can route any one of those inputs to any one of your channels, just like a video routing switcher. So that would be like direct live sources plugged right in. That's kind of this first picture here, live sources in. Again, that could be SDI, it could be NDI, streaming formats, even live social media feeds. Nice and easy because the server will just take that in directly. Simple. Now you bring in a video routing switcher. There's a couple of different ways to to model that. I would say the most traditional or common way is what you would call downstream switching, where you have your switcher and your playout server feeds into it as a input on the switcher, just like your live sources. Now, when you go live, you might tell the switcher, okay, route this live event directly to the channel output. So at that point, you're bypassing your playout server, right? That's downstream switching, and the playout server, when it's time to now play a program off the server, that switch might switch back to the playout server as the source, so the final channel destination now gets that. As playout servers themselves have gotten, fancier and fancier, and they're doing more all in one, there are limitations to doing that downstream switching approach, because when you have a live event, if your playout server is capable of doing the real-time captioning and translation, various graphics and motion logos and all that good stuff, maybe do up and down conversion. It could be doing calm audio leveling. Now you're not getting the advantage of any of that because you're switching around the server. So kind of new way to think about it, and I think many of you are doing this, we call it upstream switching, where you actually have sources going into your video switcher, and your video switcher feeds into your playout server. So now when you're going live, you're not just going through the switcher, you have the switcher sending it into the playout server and through. So now all these other processing features, captioning, translation, graphics, sending to social media, all that stuff is still happening. So what's nice is with these powerful automation tools, the systems can be smart enough to also automate those video routes. So it knows, you go into your series schedule and you say, every night at 7 o'clock, I'm playing the source that's from the council chamber room, and the system knows, oh, okay, that source goes into the video routing switcher, I have these outputs of the switcher feed my inputs, so I know I'm going to route that automatically through the switcher to get into the server and then send it out completely through the server. So through intelligent signal routing, you really, once the server knows the mapping, it's simple. In your series scheduling rules, you're just saying, this source at this time, and the Hypercaster itself, for example, knows to do all those intermediate routes to get the signal where it needs to go. So a lot of advantages to doing that upstream switching, and you can even do hybrid, and that totally makes sense too, where you may be doing upstream into the server, but you still route the server back through the switcher because you may want to use that for monitoring, or some other workflow. Now, as NDI has become more prevalent, that's even, maybe there are going to be examples where that's less important to do traditional monitoring through your video switcher, because you may do that all in IP, where the server output and the hypercaster has options to do NDI out in addition to NDI in, and then you could use that for monitoring. So again, it's as these all-in-one systems have become, more powerful. There are a lot of cases where you don't need a traditional switcher at all, but there's still examples where it makes sense. And we always, in our experience, we find that across community media, no two workflows are exactly the same. So we always try to be as flexible as possible, and we know you all have different requirements, but that's an interesting one and kind of a subtle one. Other automation around, scheduling, include how to fill gaps automatically. So that's one. It's nice if you can just schedule your core programming and you don't have to worry about filling every little gap. So this is where tools like continuity, automatically switching to a community bulletin board, whether that's, integrated in the hypercaster, or something like TelVue, which is a full up digital signage product for community bulletin board that's external. We do have a new feature coming out in the imminent 8.7 hypercaster release, which is a smart fill if you're using continuity playlists to fill your gaps, where normally it just rolls through the playlist. It is more intelligent about making sure that whatever the next element in the playlist is going to fit given the allotted time, and it will scan ahead if something is not going to fit to make sure it's not cutting something out in the middle of once it's going back to actual scheduling. So that's a nice new automation feature there as well. When it comes to bulletin board, a lot of the bulletin board features are about, automating and automation, whether it's automating, bringing in, RSS feeds and tickers and social media content. So, the whole point there is how to have engaging content without having to spend a lot of time, typing up, bulletin messages. So one area with social media integration gets into moderation. So I know a lot of stations and community media centers are a little hesitant to use social media on their digital signage because, it's a little unfiltered. It can be unfiltered. Who knows what was posted, and if you're just showing every post. But there's some neat tools out there. There's a company called ScreenFeed. We actually bundle their weather product in our TelVue signage platform. But they also have a nice social, what they call their social apps, where it has built-in moderation tools. So if you wanted to have, Twitter, your Facebook, automatically integrated in your signage or in your community bulletin board, what's nice is through their interface, you get a login and you can actually have someone moderate, and they approve each one of these messages before it gets into the the community bulletin board wheel. So it's kind of a nice workflow and automation feature. If anyone's interested in that, you could let us know. We are, we're a licensed, reseller of ScreenFeed, and we're licensed for broadcast applications. They do a lot of digital signage where it's normally, the license you pay is for one given screen. So they're a little hesitant. They don't want to make it so easy where you license it and now many thousands of people are watching it all at the same time because it's in a broadcast. So we have some special licensing agreements that allows us to bring that to community media stations. So if you're interested, let us know. It's a pretty cool application. Another area on scheduling that's becoming more and more important, especially on the commercial side. And I don't know if any of you have heard about fast channels. It's called free ad-supported streaming TV, fast channels. It's kind of funny that this is all the rage now, and at least in streaming channels, because it's really the old business model of TV. Everyone's talking about it like it's such a new thing, but basically the idea behind it is free streaming channels, but it's monetized by making viewers watch ads, and there are ads, ad breaks, just like, TV we were all used to, growing up. So, we've been helping companies launch fast channels. It's pretty a new exciting area for us. And some of the tools that are required are a little more sophistication around the scheduling for segmentation. So the idea there is, let's say you have a program, it could be a 28-minute, 30-second program, but when that airs, you want it to fill up a 30-minute segment. You want that to look like a 30-minute program, so there need to be breakpoints, and in each of those breakpoints, they're going to be filled, with spots or PSAs or sponsorships. So that's what segmentation is all about. And for the free ad-supported streaming TV, that's really important because you need to have a certain number of ad breaks because that's how it's all monetized. And then those ad breaks also have to trigger what are called, ad trigger markers downstream. So we've been building a lot of these tools in for some of our commercial customers and fast channels. But I think this is going to be interesting for community media as well, because it does provide some opportunities, whether you want to explore sponsorship as another way to generate revenue. It can be a way to round out the duration of your programming as well. You may have a lot of, kind of the duration is all over the place and you want to have that, I want this to feel like more like a nice 30-minute boundary or hour. You could use these tools like the segmentation, adding bumpers, so, some clips at the beginning and end to round it out, but also can have a nice opportunity for sponsorship revenue. So you'll see more and more of these types of features coming in the Hypercaster as well. Couple other areas, we've talked about, series scheduling and how you can tie overlay rules. This is another great way to generate, revenue, is using those overlay rules for sponsorships. So you can have nice sponsorship graphics. It ties into, we always bring up kind of a best practice. You could look at generating sponsorship revenue to help fund accessibility and captioning requirements. So you start captioning programming, and now you get some local businesses to sponsor that, and you're showing automated spots and graphics saying captioning for this programming sponsored by, XYZ local business. And now you might be able to fund, the cost that, is required to add that accessibility. So everything from sponsorships, doing squeeze back news tickers. I mean, maybe set up a rule that says during continuity, I want to squeeze back and show a local news RSS feed, now playing next up. And the other thing that's nice is, it's probably sometime last year we added motion graphics to the Hypercaster, so you can do things like in the lower quadrant here, you can see there's a spinning motion logo, even motion backgrounds for your program guides. So that really help you, spice up the look and feel of the on-air graphics. Here's an example of using a lot of the newer tools we offer to do something, really fancy with the motion background for kind of coming up next. So this is all like, there's dynamic motion graphics, but then the metadata itself for now, next, and later are being automatically generated and inserted dynamically by the Hypercaster. And that even showed some custom fonts, which is a new feature we have if you want to have the font text heavily branded for, your font selection. We talked about automatic audio leveling. That's great for your viewers as you're bringing in more and more content from different sources. The audio levels across that content can be all over the map. So you may be bringing in, streaming sources from other peer stations, things like that. So with automatic audio leveling, you can ensure that your final channel output has consistent audio no matter what the source is, and it does that dynamically in real time. So that's a really nice feature, great for that consistency. AI and automation also is making its way into quality control as well. Things like, scanning content to make sure that the quality is good, even the video quality, the audio quality, format compliance, captioning. That's kind of an interesting one that you'll start to see more of, is this integrated quality control and monitoring built right in. So moving over to expanding your audience through automation. I think one really interesting area is social media. It's another way to, of course, extend your reach. And, there are a number of ways you can do that, obviously, for live content, tapping into things like YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitch. So within the Hypercaster, for example, we have built-in streaming rules where you can set up automation, and that allows you to fully automate basically which programs, when they air, automatically send to which social media sites. So if you're doing live on social media, that's a really handy tool. It's basically like a built-in restreamer right into the Hypercaster, no additional cost required. So there's a lot of utility to that. We are also, and actually, if you stop by at National, we'll show you some deeper YouTube integration, including automating, creating YouTube broadcast events based on the schedule. So that's going to be cool stuff. Come by to check that out. On the flip side, not just the output, but being able to play social media sources and use our social media live feeds and use that as a source is a great way to bring in new content. So again, you got to make sure you have the rights to that content, but that's a great way to, pick up peer content. Maybe a peer station is broadcasting on Facebook Live and you want to rebroadcast that. You have an agreement to be able to do it. You can use that as a live source directly and record right from social media. Mentioned that the Hypercaster's integrated simulcasting. There are, of course, a lot of other third-party tools for that. Things like Restream.io, Switchboard.live, Teradek Cloud. So different ways to to make that happen. And you can either use an external service or for your playout system, some of them like the Hypercaster will have that type of functionality built in. We just launched the latest version of TelVue Connect, and that has a new feature option, which is for automated YouTube export. So what's nice with that, you can now fully automate exporting videos directly out of your TelVue Connect platform to one or more YouTube account and playlist. And what's nice is it works with the Hypercaster too, because when the Hypercaster has its own what are called content workflow rules, which can automate sending various programming up to Connect. And you can map it and say, okay, I want it to go from the Hypercaster into this Connect playlist or series. And then on the Connect side, you can hook up an automation rule that says any new episode that comes into this playlist, I want it to go to these two YouTube playlists. So effectively, you have full automation for episodes and content being recorded or coming in on the Hypercaster to automatically push out to one or more YouTube channel and playlist. So if that's something you're interested, again, come by. If you're, hopefully most of you will be at ACM National. We'd love to show you more demos of that, or just reach out if you're interested. Charlie is always available to run you through that. And that gets into the automated publishing, archiving, and sharing. So that's really expanded from automating sending, up to Cloudcast, sending, which populates your OTT and mobile app and your website. Automating sending to YouTube now, automating sending to your own network attached storage or AWS S3 or the Internet Archive. TelVue, we also have our own TelVue cloud storage offering if you're looking for kind of an enterprise cloud storage solution. That's something we have as well. And even automating sharing and sending content directly to the MassAccess Media Exchange. So it's nice with the content workflow rules, you can set all that up on autopilot, and that saves a lot of time and helps expand your reach as well. So again, mobile, across mobile, OTT, even podcasting. So not everyone realizes that, but if you're using Cloudcast, we have a podcast feature built in as well. And that will automatically strip out audio and create a iTunes compatible podcast feed, which you can then publish in different podcast directories. What's great is with all the streaming and as well as social media, you can now leverage metrics. So whether you're using Cloudcast and you look at all the built-in streaming metrics, that can help you learn about your audience, preferences and when the best time is to air different programming, who's watching on which platform, on which OTT. That's great to have all that at your fingertips. And as well as you're expanding and doing things on social media, you can get a lot more viewership analytics through the social media platforms as well. A little bit more on audience engagement. We have a couple exciting things we're going to be unveiling at National as well. So one is adding push notifications to the Cloudcast mobile apps. So there can be, an announcement anytime a new episode of, various programs are coming in. Your users themselves can go in and customize, which playlists and which series they're interested in being notified about. But that's a nice way to engage and get people, knowing, instantly when new episodes are available. Of course, various social media platforms already have those types of features. So if you're using, the integrated YouTube export and someone has subscribed to your channel, they'll be getting notices when new episodes are available that way. We're also unveiling a new auto social media posting feature in Connect. So this would allow automatic links for new episodes to be posted to a variety of social media sites. So if you want to just put that on autopilot and have, hey, every time I have a new football game, is posted, I want to post that automatically on my Facebook page and, and on my Instagram page, and you can put that on autopilot as well. We already talked a bit about archiving. I'm going to kind of skip through that. And media exchange as well. What's nice is with the Hypercaster, you can automate, pushing and sharing content directly to the media exchange, and also automate pulling down from the media exchange. So a number of tools in that regard. And to wrap up here, we've really covered accessibility quite a bit at the beginning in the AI side. So I'm going to skip through that. But I just want to highlight probably final thing here on the Connect side with the latest TelVue Connect release. You'll see for Connect users, there's some new automations you can take advantage of. So on a what we call a collection by collection basis, so collections would be things like series, playlists, and categories. There's a new automations tab where you can now go in and set up all sorts of automation rules within the Connect platform, including, do I want to use the AI features to automatically generate a summary of the content? So now your government meetings can be automatically summarized for your viewers directly, by Connect, and you don't need to click an action to do it. You just set up a rule that says these, playlists automatically get AI summarized. That's a feature within TelVue Smart Captioning, is the AI summarization. Likewise, you want to have chapters automatically generated. That's also a new relatively new AI feature. And you can see when you're setting up that workflow rule, you can pick what type of content is it. Is it a government meeting? Is it sports, or is it generic programming? And then the AI obviously is tuning the prompts under the hood to come up with automated chapter points. So that's nice, is that you can fully automate that AI chapter generation for meetings and sports and general programming, summaries. You can, through the automation rules, you can designate what gets captioned, which languages, which custom language models, what gets translated. So that's great for your video on demand. You may want to have 5 languages that gets translated to. Likewise, this is where you can set up the YouTube automation. So you can say any new episode in this particular playlist automatically goes to these 2 YouTube accounts and these particular playlists, as well as what all the key YouTube metadata settings, you want to set up as well. So just about any of the settings you can configure or edit in YouTube for a video, you can set that up as part of this rule. And then this is also where the new automations around automatic social media posting will come into play. So you can automate posting, links to Facebook, Instagram, X as well. So that's an exciting new feature. And then, finally, paywall. We talked about this briefly. Again, really recommend anyone interested in this, please attend the National ACM session. We're going to do a deep dive, but here just showing a couple of screenshots of what Lincoln County set up, where they added. And what's nice is you can fully customize your paywall packages, whether you're doing, monthly, annual subscriptions, pay-per-view. You have full flexibility. You can have different packages, organize content in different packages, and then present that right on your website to make it easy for people to come in and purchase those packages, whether they do it right from your website or within your video player, and now within the apps as well. That's the OTT integration. And what's nice with that OTT integration, it becomes truly like a TV everywhere experience. Someone can buy or subscribe on Apple TV, And then later they can go in and log in with that same purchase on your website or on a Roku, or buy on your website and now log in and watch on Roku. So it opens up that full TV everywhere experience with new ways to monetize. Um, and the final way to monetize, another feature, we've had this for a bit, is through pre, mid, and post-roll advertising. So that's another add-on feature on Connect, or sorry, on the Cloudcast side. So maybe you're not interested in setting up a paywall if you feel like you don't think you should be charging, or you don't think there's a room for that, but you'd be interested in doing some sponsorship monetization where every time someone watches a VOD clip or tunes into your channel, they watch a short brief ad from one of your sponsors, and that can be another way to monetize as well. And we'll talk more about that at the ACM session. So I probably went over a minute or two, but really appreciate everyone's time. And if there are any final questions here, happy to answer. Otherwise, reach out to any one of us, Brian, Charlie, or myself. And we hope to see you at National, and come by. And again, any questions we can talk about live there as well.
Can I ask you one quick question, and then I got to run because I actually have someone here for another meeting. I'm Patty from Cape Media
Hi,
in
Patty. Thanks.
Dennisport. Hi, Massachusetts. So the thing with the paywall, I'm just picturing towns sort of giving pushback on that because they're, giving us money to do coverage. And how did Lincoln TV get around that? Did they get any pushback?
That's a great question. So this is going to be one of the key intro topics at the session, and
Okay.
I could give a quick summary here, but it's much better spoken coming from the other executive directors who've been through this. So yes, there can be pushback. It is interesting, the question about, well, you're providing funding to to get this content out there, but that's kind of on cable, right? That's one, it's a reasonable distinction. I'm not saying
Right.
someone might not push back on that, and there could be different degrees of pushback. But in fairness, that's about getting your content out on cable, and paywall, really has nothing to do with the cable side. This is now you're in the world of streaming, or even
Right.
monetizing
I
on
gotcha. I got
social
you.
media. So
I got you.
I mean, yeah,
I see the distinction.
yep.
You answered my question.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. But there's a
I
lot
wasn't,
more.
okay.
There's a lot more about that, and I think if you're interested, I highly suggest you go to the session because their stories are incredible, and they really do cover interesting ways to not only get around that, but to actually make even more money with the groups that were originally pushing back. So I'll leave that to them.
It's fascinating stuff. I hope that you send this slide deck to us, or the recorded presentation, but I'm really, really interested in learning more.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent.
Thank you for your time, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks for attending. Really appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap things up for the afternoon. I just wanted to say thanks to Jesse and Brian and Charlie, all from TelVue, not only for their presentation here today, but for their ongoing support of MassAccess and all of our members. We really do appreciate the partnership that we have with TelVue. I think we all learned some stuff here today, and this was great. And hopefully, more people will tune in after the fact and check out all this information. If you have any questions, just reach out to Jesse or Charlie or Brian. And thank you for being here.